Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Virtual Instruction with CommonLit webinar. Today, I will be diving into everything CommonLit Digital, and I'll be explaining how you can use CommonLit specifically for this time of distance learning. I'm going to be going through this webinar. It's going to be about an hour long, but I'm also joined here by my colleagues. We have Bryn, Amanda, Anjali, Augustina, and I might have left someone out, but we got a lot of people here today, and they're going to be answering your questions throughout the entire webinar. They're going to be answering your questions specifically in the Q&A feature, and I'll highlight that in just a second. But feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and discuss things with attendees there, but otherwise direct all your questions to the Q&A feature. So to give you a little bit of an overview of what today's webinar will be about, we are going to first start off with an introduction to CommonLit, who we are, why we're free, why we're a nonprofit, and then we're going to head into commonlit.org and show you how you can find a lesson, how you can actually set up a class using those various methods that we have, how you can assign a lesson digitally and what that lesson looks like from a student's perspective, and then as a teacher, how you can grade those lessons and access all the data from your students' digital submissions. And at the very end, I'll wrap things up and we'll share a few more resources with you as we finish up answering questions in the Q&A feature. So about that feature, at the bottom of your webinar screen, you'll see a few buttons. If you'd like to ask us a question, again, please direct all questions throughout this entire webinar to the Q&A feature. You won't be needing to use the raise hand button. We're not going to be turning off anybody's mic or turning on anybody's mic at any point in time. So if you have a question, please just send it to Q&A and we will definitely get to it as soon as we can. And again, for chat, you can just use that to introduce yourself, say where you're from, and you can talk to other attendees. So you know, we will be sending out a follow-up email after this webinar, so you'll get that later on today. That email will include a recording of this webinar, and it will include various resources that we mentioned today. It can serve as a proof of attendance for you. If you do need a certificate that shows that you attended today's webinar, you can reach out to us, reply to that email, or you can reach out to info@commonlit.org, and we'll be sharing those helpful email addresses throughout the webinar, but info@commonlit.org if you need a certificate for the webinar. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We'll come back to this in just a second, and I will talk to you directly. So to give you a little bit of an intro into CommonLit, we started back in 2013, and we are a nonprofit that was started by our CEO and founder, Michelle Brown. So Michelle was teaching down in the Mississippi Delta, and she had a really under-resourced classroom, which is what really motivated and inspired her to create a high-quality, free literacy resource for teachers and students. So we have over 2,000 high-quality reading passages that have aligned questions that go with them. We have tons of really great digital resources and tools. So CommonLit Digital has not only great texts that are really engaging for students, but we also have things like related media that is even more engaging for students to get them really interested in what they're learning about. And then we also have things like tools for struggling readers. We have Read Aloud, we have a highlight and annotating feature. We also have a translate tool, and I'll show you all those in a little bit. We have great, really fast grading for teachers. So any multiple choice questions on CommonLit are automatically graded for you. And we also have data analytics that teachers can use to break down student performance and then empower their instruction. So we have a lot that we offer, and all of it, everything that you see here today is completely free to you. It's not a temporary thing. It's always been free and it always will be. And that was part of Michelle's mission when she first started CommonLit. So that's never going to change. And I'm excited to show you all the different things that I was just talking about in just a second. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen. And like I said, we're going to start off by creating an account on CommonLit. And then I will dive into our library, explore that a little bit, show you the various ways of navigating to find a lesson. And then we're going to try to look at an individual lesson, what comes along with that, and then I'll show you how to start creating a class, and we'll go on from there. So just to let you know what's coming next, I'll go ahead and start sharing my screen, and I'll actually turn off my video for right now to avoid any connectivity issues. So now we should be looking at commonlit.org. So this is where you'll first start off if you need to create an account. You can come over here to this Create Free Account button. We do allow educators and parents or guardians to sign up for accounts. I'm going to be an educator today though. And this is where you'll answer just a few questions about yourself. So you'll choose your type of school. You can enter your zip code, which brings down this drop-down list. You can choose your school, and then you just answer a few more pieces of information in order to create and then confirm your account. So let's just say I just created an account, brand new, and it's gonna be completely blank. So I don't have any assignments. I actually can't even create a digital assignment until I have a class and I have students in my class. So I'll keep that in mind, but I want to first explore CommonLit and see what lesson I would want to assign to my class now that I have an account. So I'm going to switch back to the main page of CommonLit so we can get started from the very beginning again, now that I'm in my account. Instead of a Create Free Account button, this is now a button to browse the library. You can also access the library up here. And I'm just going to hit this button and it'll take me to the main library page. So there are a few different ways of searching through our library. And as I said before, we have over 2,000 reading passages, and that consists of over 1,500 English passages, which you can see right here. And then we have over, I believe, 480 passages about in Spanish now. Yeah, 479 Spanish passages. So if you have, if you teach Spanish or if you have any English language learners, you might want to check out our Spanish collection. But today I'm going to focus on English. So what we're looking at right now is our main library page, and we offer a few ways of navigating through this collection that we have. And you can see these different tabs up here. Those are the different ways that we're going to walk through today. And starting off with the main library page, you can start filtering for things that apply to your class or what you're looking for. You can search for an exact title of a text if you're wondering if we have it. You can sort by popularity or lexile level. And then you can check the boxes for things like grade level, theme, genre, and so on. And as I was just showing you a second ago, you can toggle for language as well to see our Spanish text. Whenever you're looking at an image for a text on CommonLit, you can see a few pieces of information about the text even before you click on it. So if you see my cursor right here next to the Malala text, you can see to the right of my cursor the title of the text, the author, lexile level, genre, and grade level. If you hover over each of these thumbnail images, you can see a little statement about what this text is. And then in the bottom right-hand corner, you have the ability to add this text to your favorites list. So if you really like it, but you don't know when you're going to assign it, you can add it to your favorites list or remove it. And that will go up here under favorites. So this is the main library page, the first way that you can go through our library. But like I said, we have a bunch of different tabs up here. So I'm going to walk you through featured content, themes, text sets, novel sets are in our mini units. So let's start with our featured content tab. This is where we have some of our popular texts, our topical texts. So depending on the time of year, we might put together groupings based on a certain holiday season or a certain event that's going on. So as you can see, obviously COVID-19 is a very present issue right now around the world. So we decided to put together groupings of texts about human kindness, disease, health, and self-care, because we know it's really important to remind students right now of what's the most important, and that's taking care of themselves and others. So we have texts in English about these topics, as well as texts in Spanish. And you can browse our featured content tab to find other groupings that we've put together as well. The next tab I'll walk you through is our themes tab, which could be great if you teach English. Maybe you teach to a particular theme or essential question. You can scroll down and see the different themes we have and the essential questions that our curriculum team has put together underneath each theme. So if I want to check out this theme of morality, I can see a couple of different essential questions here. When you click an essential question, it'll take you to the grade level breakdown. So you can find all the lessons for your grade level for this essential question under this theme. So again, if you're an English teacher, you might want to check out the themes tab. The next tab here is our text sets, which could be great if you're a history teacher or a STEM teacher, because we have a ton of different text sets that cover a range of literary movements or historical periods or STEM topics, and they include both literary and nonfiction lessons across many grade levels. So you can see here, as you scroll through, each text set has a little introduction to the topic, and then when you click on one of these text sets, it'll give you a bunch of different lessons that fall within that category. Right now for distance learning, if you type in elementary or middle or high school, it'll bring up text for learning at home for those grade levels. So definitely check out those text sets if you're looking for text that would be really great for administering at home right now. Now I want to take you to our book pairings or novel sets tab, which has a list of 92 books that we suggest passages to assign while you are teaching these books. So if you're teaching a book unit in your class and you're wondering what reading passages you should assign along with the book as you're teaching it, you can come to our book pairings tab and search for the book and then figure out which lessons would work best for your students. But not only can you find different lessons, we also give you a little summary of each passage on the same page, and we tell you when and how you can pair this lesson with the book. So depending on how far into the book your students are, or what you want to bring up in particular, this could help you know when you should administer this lesson. So here it tells you before the students even begin, you should assign this lesson, and then you can find lessons for further along into the novel. So definitely check out this tab if you teach a book in your class, because especially right now, if you're teaching a novel remotely, this would be yet another great way to keep your students engaged and make sure that they're getting the background knowledge that they need to access the plot. Last but not least, let's check out our mini units. So we offer mini units for all of the different grade levels that we have on CommonLit, grades 3 through 12. And we also have recently added some more distance learning units for every grade level. So if you haven't yet, definitely come to our units tab and check these out. Everything is backwards planned from an essential question, and everything has a final assessment and lots of great resources. So if I were to check out one of these units, you can see everything it has to offer. It tells you about how long it's going to last. You have different downloadables if you want to download everything you can, or different teacher or student copies. And you can see what skills are covered in this unit. We have the final assessment. And then when you scroll down, you can see all the different types of assignments. And we also have vocabulary activities for these distance learning units. So a lot of good stuff. Definitely check this out for your virtual instruction lesson planning. All right, so I'm going to go back to the main text page. And just a reminder, I know I'm going over a lot right now, so if you have any questions whatsoever, please send those to the Q&A feature. We want to try to keep all of our questions as orderly as possible so that we are sure that we don't miss any. So please send your questions to Q&A and save the chat just for introducing yourself or talking to other attendees, because we definitely want to help you. And we have a big team on our webinar today, so please direct all questions to Q&A. So now what I want to do is try to find a lesson that works best for my class. And I'm just going to start from this main library page and start checking off the boxes for things that work best for my students. I'm just going to go ahead and check the box for 9th to 10th grade, because let's say I'm a 9th grade English teacher today. And I actually have some struggling readers in my class, so maybe I want to see all of the lower Lexile level text first. And we're working on the theme of social change right now. So I'm going to come down to themes. and check the box for social change and revolution. And now I think I want to assign a speech. I think that'll be a good engaging text to administer during this time. So let's go ahead and go to genres and check the box for speech. So all of a sudden I've down from over 1,500 lessons down to just 12, so that it's much more manageable and much easier for me to sift through and find what works best. So all of these are great options for me. Now I can hover over each image here, see a little description of what each of these lessons is. And you can also see the Lexile level, obviously, and you can always favorite again if you want to save this for later. But right now, let's say I want to take a look at this I Have a Dream speech, because it's an amazing speech and students should learn this at some point in time during their school years. It's just so incredible and has a ton of figurative language. And I'll show you a couple different ways that you can take a look at this language with your students. So right now we're looking at the text page. You can see up here that we have several different tabs for our teacher and parent-facing resources that we offer for each lesson. We also offer on a lot of our lessons the ability to download a PDF version of this lesson, so the text and the assessment questions. But for virtual instruction, we're going to show you all of the digital resources that you can get. So I'm going to walk you through all the different types of questions that you can assign digitally, as well as these resources up here. And before I get into all of those, I'm just going to briefly go over the different tools that students can use when they are going through and doing the lesson themselves. Because you can see these tools on your account as well. And I'll show you when I'm on the student account a little bit more how the students will use these, but I just want to point them out to you now. So if you come over here above the questions, you can see a few different buttons. We have our read aloud tool, which will allow students to have the text read out loud to them. We have our translate tool, which can translate text into any of the 27 different languages that we offer. And then we also have our annotation tool. And this is something you can play around with on your account as well. So you can click and drag your cursor and make a note if you want. You can also highlight if you would like. So if you want to take a video of yourself on your screen doing these annotations, if you want to take a screenshot and send this as an example to your students, that would be a great way of showing them how you would like them to go about doing these annotations. But I just want to point out that on the teacher account, while student annotations do save, you can actually see the student annotations on your account and provide feedback to student annotations. Teacher annotations do not save currently. So if you were to navigate away from this page and come back, this note and this highlight would not remain. So keep that in mind if you're going through and trying to make good examples for your students, that you would instead want a screenshot or take a recording of your screen to share with your students, because you won't be able to come back to the screen at a later time to show them. But again, for students, these notes will automatically start saving as soon as they're making them, and you can see them on the teacher account and provide feedback to them. And I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. So now that we've briefly reviewed these tools, and again, I'll show these in depth later when I'm on the student account, I want to talk about these different tabs up here. So first we'll start with our paired text tab. And here you can find the various passages that our curriculum writers have handpicked to pair with the main text you're looking at. So we say, if you're looking at I Have a Dream, you can go ahead and assign any of these different lessons, and then we give you a little explanation of what that lesson is, as well as some questions that you can ask your students to help them make connections across text. So for example, if you were to assign your students this informational text by Jason Miller, then this would be a great idea to pair the two texts, the two lessons, to expand the students' learning and get them thinking across texts. So maybe they would gain a better understanding behind why Martin Luther King Jr. chose the words he did in his speech. Our next tab up here is related media, and this is one of the great tools or great features of CommonLit Digital that is another great level of student engagement. So for all of our lessons on CommonLit, we have at least one video, sometimes 2 or 3, that you can share with your students along with the lesson that you assign to them. So a lot of these videos are hosted on YouTube. You can share the link with them. During remote learning, you can share the link to these videos on your learning management system, your class webpage, maybe via email, and you can have them watch the video before or after they complete the lesson. So it's another piece of engagement to make them feel not only more connected to the text, but also to your class. We provide a little description of what each video is, and we even give you some questions that you can ask your students to consider maybe before or after they're watching the video. And particularly for speeches, watching a video is a great way of allowing the students to fully understand how this speech was supposed to be received by the audience. Up here on the next tab, we have the answer key for our assessment questions. I'll get to the different types of questions in just a second, but these questions are the ones that are automatically assigned to students digitally, and they're the graded questions. So the graded questions, those answers are found here. And lastly, we have our parent guide. This is something that you can share with your students' parents to keep them up to date on what their kids are learning about in your class. So we have some questions that maybe they could ask at home or on the dinner table to really get them more involved and reinforce their kids' learning in your class. Now I'm going to go back to our text page, and I want to start reviewing the different types of questions that we have on CommonLit Digital. So we have 3 different types of questions. We have guiding, assessment, and discussion questions. The first type, the guiding questions, are a part of guided reading mode. And this is a feature that is an optional feature you can enable for your students. And it's really for your more struggling readers because these are scaffolded comprehension questions that support student understanding of the text. You can preview them by scrolling down this text page, and every little bubble here is a different guiding question. So this looks a little bit different on the student account, and I'll show you what that appears like for them. But if you are wanting to see what the answers are for these different questions, you can kind of take them like a student would. You can answer them and try to figure out the correct answer, and that's where you would locate the answers for these guiding questions. But again, this is part of a feature that is optional. You can choose to enable it for particular students or your entire class. And students have to answer these questions correctly before they moved on to the graded assessment questions. But the best part about these questions is that these are not graded. So they don't go against the student's grade. They don't hurt them in any way, but it does give you more data to dig into because we report how many attempts it takes a student to get each comprehension question correct. So it's a great way to assess student understanding and inform further intervention. So that brings me to the next type of questions, which are our assessment questions. And again, these are automatically assigned to students when you assign a lesson digitally, and they are standards aligned and most often multiple choice and short answer questions. So you can preview these by clicking through here, and you can see the standard for each question in this little blue box next to the question. What's great about these is that when you receive students' submissions digitally, you also get a bunch of data that's gathered from these questions so that you can see how students are performing according to each standard. And I'll show you that when we're looking at the data analytics on the teacher account later on. But just know that you get that data when you assign lessons digitally. And another reminder that these questions, the answers for these assessment questions, the ones that are graded, are up here on this answer key tab. The last type of questions we have are discussion questions. These cannot be seen by students on their account, but we do suggest that you use these either to start a discussion, so maybe during virtual instruction you have video calls with your students. You could use any of these questions as prompts for student discussion, or you could also use them as prompts for writing assignments or annotations. So we allow you, when you assign a lesson digitally, to customize the annotation task that students receive for each lesson. I'll show you this in just a second when I assign this. But if you want to customize this annotation task and ask your students to answer a specific question in their notes, you can use any of these discussion questions as prompts for them. So those are the 3 different types of questions we have. And now that I've previewed all of my different teacher and parent-facing resources and the different tools we have and the questions we offer, I now have decided I really like this lesson and I want to assign it. If you recall, I still need to create a class and add students to my class to be able to assign a lesson digitally. I've actually switched over to another account that does have some classes and students, but I want to still show you how you can go about creating a class. So I'm going to go ahead and go to My Classes and go to the Manage Classes page. So here's where you can see all the classes that you currently have, or if I didn't have a class yet, then this would be completely bare bones, which is what we just saw when I created an account in front of you. So now I can see my classes, but I want to go ahead and create a new class. We actually have a few different ways to create a class on CommonLit, and I'm going to explain a couple of the ways and then show you the third. So the 2 ways that you can create a class through our integrations are through our Google Classroom integration and our Clever integration. So these I'll explain a little bit of the benefits of, and then I'll show you the third manual way of creating a class. So for Google Classroom, if you use Google Classroom, you could take advantage of our integration, which will allow you to import your classes and your students to CommonLit. You can set up Google single sign-on for your students. You can post your assignments to your Google Classroom stream. You can track completion of CommonLit assignments within your Google Classroom, and you can share scores from CommonLit to your Google Classroom gradebook. If you have Clever, you can also use our integration, which will allow you to sign all of your students up in one fell swoop. You can use single sign-on, and your classes will update whenever a student is added or removed from your class. For our Clever integration, if your district is already set up with Clever for CommonLit, then all you need to do is log into CommonLit from your Clever dashboard, or you can also hit the Login from Clever button on our login page to connect your account to Clever and add all of your Clever classes. So if your district or your school isn't already set up with Clever for CommonLit, it's a pretty easy process. We do ask that school or district admins reach out to our school partnerships team, and that way we can work with you to get that integration set up and working for you. If you are a teacher and you want to tell your school or district admins a little bit more about this partnership and why it would be really beneficial for you, you can send them a blog post that we offer, which will explain a little bit more about the partnership. So I'm posting a link to this blog post in the chat right now. So if you're a teacher, feel free to share that with your admins. And if you are a school or district admin and you want to reach out to us, you can email partnerships@commonlit.org and we can set up that integration for you. So those are the 2 different integrations we currently have. But again, there is a third way of creating a class, and that's our manual way. And it's a really easy process as well. So I'm going to come over here to the Create a New Class button. And then since we're doing it manually, let's create a new class manually. And then you can select the school you want your class to be a part of. You can enter your class name. So you would create a class for each block or period that you have. And again, let's say I'm 9th grade, English Language Arts, so you select your grade and your subject area. So now I have my class on CommonLit, but I don't have any students, so that's the next step that I need to take. Adding students on CommonLit, when you do it the manual way, you will need to use this unique class code that's generated for your class. So if you add students via Google Classroom or Clever, those 2 integrations, you don't need to use this class code. However, if you create a class manually, definitely take note of this class code. It'll always be on your Manage Classes page, but make sure that you know where it is and that you can share it with your students. So if I come here to this Add Students button, that code will also be here. But it will explain to you a couple of different things that you can direct your students to do when they're joining your class. So if your students are brand new to CommonLit, they don't have an account, they've never used it with another teacher, they can go to www.commonlit.org/en/enroll, and they'll need this code to join your class. And we realized that some students might need a little bit more support than this. So we do have this PDF handout that you can download. You can share it with your students on your learning management system, via your class web page, or you can email it to them or to their parents or guardians so that they can help them get set up. But it's just a few steps. It's really simple. It just really walks them through and writes it out for them. But they'll have this handout, and then as long as they have the code for your class, they should be good to go. For students who are already on CommonLit, so maybe they have a few other teachers and they have a few classes on CommonLit that they're a part of, no problem. They can go to the My Account and Classes page on their CommonLit account. And with this code, again, they can join your class really easily from that page. So just keep in mind, you will need this code mainly if you are creating a class manually. And then we also have this PDF handout that you can share with them when you click this Add Students button. Now, while I am on this page, I'll also explain to you how you can add a co-teacher to your class. So maybe you have students in your class, but now you want to add a co-teacher. Teachers can add co-teachers, aides, secondary teachers, whoever it may be, instructional coaches to their class. There's no limit on how many you can add right now. And co-teachers will be able to see your class information, manage students, add students, grade assignments. They just can't leave classes, archive classes, change important information, or delete assignments. So the only data they can edit are students' names, and they can reset student passwords. And again, they can grade, which is really helpful for you. And when you and your co-teacher are grading, you'll actually receive a warning if you're grading a student's assignment at the same time. So if you grade a same student within 2 minutes of each other, whoever was looking at the assignment second will get a notification that the student has already been graded. And the way for adding a co-teacher to your class is actually pretty similar to how you would add students. We have 3 different ways. You could probably guess. We have the manual way, we have the Google Classroom integration, and the Clever integration that would allow you to add a co-teacher. For Google Classroom, there are a couple different ways you can add a co-teacher. So for the first option, the person that you want to add as a co-teacher has to first be listed as a co-teacher in your Google Classroom as well. So that person has to have their Google Classroom integrated with their CommonLit account. And if both of those things are in place, you can sync your class as a primary teacher, and the co-teacher would then show up as a co-teacher in CommonLit. But if your co-teacher is not on Google Classroom yet, let's say, and they don't have their account synced with CommonLit, then you can have them join by using the class code for your class that they're joining. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. For Clever, the co-teacher's account needs to be linked to Clever. And once that's done, our team will sync Clever classes every weekend, so you should see the co-teacher in your class the following Monday. So one important point for all of the different methods that you can use, the manual, Google Classroom, and Clever ways of adding a co-teacher, the primary and co-teacher must both be a faculty member at the same private or public school. So you can see here I'm associated with a couple of different schools. So if you are trying to add a co-teacher for this class, your co-teacher on their My Account page would also have to be associated with this verified public or private school. Now, if I'm adding a co-teacher manually, then I can come over to the class that I'm adding the teacher to. I can click Manage Co-Teachers, and then I would add their email address here, which would then invite the teacher to this class. So they get an invite, and once they accept, they can join your class as a co-teacher. If you are a co-teacher yourself and you want to join a class, you can come down to the Join Class as Co-Teacher button. And as long as you have that unique class code, you would add the code here just as a student would to join a class, and that will send a request to the primary teacher who would have to accept your request to join the class. So that's the second option for Google Classroom as well. So if your co-teacher is not synced to, if their Google Classroom is not synced to CommonLit, or if they're not even on Google Classroom as a co-teacher, they could also join by clicking this button and using the class code. So those are the various ways that you can add a co-teacher or join a class as a co-teacher. And if you have any questions about that or about how to add students to your class and how to get them set up, we do have an awesome support team who you can reach out to, and I'll add the email addresses here. So we have help@commonlit.org. Definitely reach out to our support team. They're amazing, and they get to your question as quickly as they possibly can about any technical issue or question you have. If you want to check out our support articles, you can also browse our support articles here and look up any question that you have, because we have a lot of articles that could quickly answer your question just by checking out our article. So definitely check out our FAQ page or reach out to us at help@commonlit.org. All right, so now that I've created a class, I've added students to my class, I want to go back and assign the I Have a Dream text to my students. So I'm going to go back to this text, and to assign a text, I'm going to click the Assign Text button. From here, you choose the school that your class is in that you want to assign this to. So let's say it's my John Adams High School. Let's select my class. You can assign this text to one class, multiple classes, or you can make it a small group assignment and just assign it to individual students. The next thing you can do here is customize your annotation task. So this is what I was referring to earlier when I was explaining how you could use our discussion questions for your students. So if you look in this box for any text, we do have a standard annotation task that you can use for your lesson when you're assigning it. But if you want to personalize it a little bit more, and especially during distance learning, when you don't see your students that much, maybe you want to provide them with specific instructions, but also maybe you just want to make it a little bit friendlier, a little bit more personable so that you can connect with them, then you can edit this. So I'm going to go ahead and take this, delete it, and I've already written a different annotation task that I want to paste in here. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that. And you can see that I have a friendly little opening here. I say that I miss seeing my students every day, but I'm really excited to continue this unit. And then I carry on, and I'd give them a little bit more to focus on when they're reading. So I can tell them, like, maybe I want you to highlight specific figurative language in green. And then at the end of the text, make a note with your annotation tool and respond to these questions. So if they read through the annotation task, they'll know what to highlight, in what color, and then what questions that I want them to respond to. The next thing I can do here is I can turn on guided reading mode. So you can toggle this on for your students. And again, these are the scaffolded comprehension questions that are more for your struggling readers. So you can enable it for the entire class so everyone receives those questions, or you can turn it on for individual students. So maybe only a couple of students really could use the extra support. I'm going to choose those students here, and then I'll show you what that looks like in a second. The last thing you do here is decide the start date and due date for your assignment. So during distance learning, it's really helpful to be able to schedule and plan out the different lessons over weeks or maybe even months at a time. So maybe if you want to assign this lesson in a couple weeks from now, you can choose for it to start on May 4th, and then you can choose the due date as well. Now your students, when they receive this, they only will be able to start working on it. They can't even see it. They can't do anything until May 4th arrives. So that is how the start date feature works. But for the purposes of this demo today, I'm going to go ahead and make it today's date so that I can start working on it and show you what it looks like from a student's perspective. So let's say that it's going to be due, let's say, by this Friday. Okay, so I filled out all the information here. I've customized my annotation task, turned on guided reading mode. I'm going to go ahead and assign this lesson. This will bring up the share assignment screen, which I'm going to point out because this could be helpful for Google Classroom users. From this window, you can decide to post your assignment to your Google Classroom, and you can decide to post scores to Google Classroom as well for this assignment. So if you want to do that, you can come over here, and these would be enabled if you have your Google Classroom synced. So right now my account is not synced with Google Classroom, but these would be in full color if it was. And then if you don't use Google Classroom, maybe you have a class Twitter account that you use, or you want to post this to a class webpage, then you can alert your students to this assignment by just copying the link to the assignment, or you can even email it to them and share it with them externally. If you do exit out of this window, you can access it again. If you go to your assignments page, and then you can see that for all of your in-progress assignments, you have the ability to share your assignment. So you can click the share assignment window and it brings that window back up for you. All right, so I just went over a ton of information. We went over how to create an account, navigate the library, look at a text, and preview all the questions and resources, and then how to create a class, add students, add co-teachers, and then how to assign a lesson. I'm going to pause very briefly and check in with my colleagues to see if there are any questions that we want to address more broadly for everybody. And just a reminder, please send any questions you have for this entire webinar, throughout the entire webinar, to the Q&A feature on Zoom. So at the bottom of your screen, you should be able to see different buttons. When you click on Q&A, you can send a question directly to my colleagues who are typing away during this webinar, answering your questions. So with that, I'm going to pause, and Bryn, Amanda, Anjali, Augustina, do you guys have any questions that you'd like to address for everybody more broadly?
No, I think we're good so far.
Okay, so now I'm going to be switching over to the student account. So you can see the lesson that I just assigned. We can dive into the different digital tools I can use as a student, and we can answer the questions that I received. And then after that, I'll flip over to the teacher account again, show you how to grade, and show you the data that you can gather. So I'm going to share a new screen, which is going to be the student account. So now I am looking at a student account on CommonLit. Looks pretty similar, but if I were to refresh my page, you can see that I get a little red notification bubble up here, letting me know that I have something to do. And that's because I have an assignment that was just assigned to me. I actually have several that I can work on, but this is the most recent. So I'm going to click on this, which is a lesson I just created on this webinar. The very first thing that pops up is our student intro. And this is going to provide a little bit of background knowledge on the text the students are about to read, maybe about the author or who this text is about. And then, as you may recognize, we have our annotation task. So this is what I just personalized for my students, and it tells them what they need to be focusing on, what they should annotate while they are reading this text. When students hit got it, all of that information does remain up here in this gray box. So if they forgot what they should be working on, they can definitely come back and check out their annotation task here. Now, before I jump into this lesson and show you how to answer questions, I'm going to show you the different tools that we have. And I briefly introduced these before, but I'll show you them in full use now. So if I am a better auditory learner as a student, and if I focus better when I have text read out loud to me, I can use the read aloud tool. So if I come over here and click on this button, it brings up these little speaker icons next to each section of text, and that's going to read the text out loud to me. So if I press this button,
I Have a Dream by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., 1963.
I can play that text out loud, and from the point where I click the little speaker icon, it will proceed to read the text, the entire text if I want, until I click pause or stop. I can also hide this read aloud away when I'm done with it so it doesn't show up on my screen anymore. The next tool I have is the translate tool. So maybe I'm an English language learner and I still need a little extra support with translating different phrases or words. It also brings up little icons next to each section of text. So if I click on the little icon, it brings up a translation next to the text I want translated. The default language is set to Spanish, but we also have 27 different languages they can choose from. So if they speak Korean, for example, I could get a Korean translation next to the text. And same thing with this, if I don't want to use this tool anymore, I can hide it away so it's not on my screen. And lastly, we have this annotation tool, which you don't actually need to turn on or turn off. It's always able to be used, but we do provide a little reminder here. So if students forget that it exists, they can click this button and it'll explain how to use the tool. So as I showed before on the teacher account, you can click and drag your cursor and you can write a note. But unlike the teacher account, student annotations and highlights do save, and they automatically start saving as soon as the student starts typing. So if I click on this text button, and if I say interesting, it's going to be automatically saving as soon as I'm typing. So even before I hit done, this note is saved. It's going to be on CommonLit. If I navigate away from this page and come back, it will still be there. My teacher can now see this note, and my teacher can now provide feedback on this note. So even if your computer crashes, this is going to be there. And you can hit done, and you can always come back and edit or delete this annotation. And then, as I was showing before, you can highlight in any of these 6 different colors we offer as well. So if this is a figurative language example, I can highlight in green, and you can take notes on top of notes and on top of highlights. So the possibilities are really endless here. If you click away from your notes, and maybe if they're overlapping, you don't know what corresponds to which section, if you click on either the line or the note itself, it will highlight in a lime green color so you can see what note corresponds to which underline. So that is our annotation tool, our read aloud and translate tool. And I did forget to mention another tool, even though it may seem very simple, is the ability to change the font size. So even though it seems like a minor tool, it could be really helpful for some students. So now that I know the tools that I have at my disposal, which if you would like to share a video that goes over how students can use CommonLit and the different things that they can use, we do have videos on our YouTube page, so you can check out those videos. And I believe we do send those different resources in the follow-up email. But just so you know, we have those resources for you. Once I know all the tools I have and resources, I'm going to go ahead and start reading. So I continue down and I start reading here, and then I see the rest of my text is actually blurred out. I can't read anything, I can't see anything, and that's because guided reading mode was enabled for this assignment. So I'm on Sean's account, and Sean has to complete each guiding question before he can move on. So each comprehension question will come up over here, and I have to get the question right before I can move on. So even if it takes me all 4 attempts, it won't unlock the next section of text until I get it right. So I can proceed to try to answer each question right here. And I have 7 different questions. Kind of a long speech, so that's why there's so many guiding questions here. And again, these don't count against my grade. So this is just support for me, and it also provides more data for you, which could be great during distance learning when maybe the students who receive this guided reading mode would be the ones who you normally are checking in on in class if you're doing this assignment in class. So these guiding questions provide more support for those students who would otherwise be intervening with and helping during class. And then you get that data of how many attempts it takes them to do each question. So it really provides you as much insight as you possibly can have when they're doing this assignment digitally. Once the student has completed all of their guiding questions, they get a little explanation about these stars here. So guided reading mode is somewhat gamified, where you can get a star for every question you answer correctly on the first attempt. And if you don't answer it correctly on the first attempt, you get a partial star. So we have the explanation here, which could be a motivating factor for the next assignment if they want to try to get all 7 stars completely filled. But now you can see, since all 7 questions have been completed, I can move on to the graded portion, which are the assessment questions. And here, these ones, I can see the entire text. These ones are graded. They're more rigorous and standards aligned. So I can go through and start answering these. But if I don't know an answer, I can skip through and I can always go back. So it's not like guiding questions where I have to do a question right each time. If a question has a quote or a paragraph number next to it, then you can click on the paragraph number and it'll drag you to that particular section. So it saves students a little bit of time, and it's helpful for them if they struggle to find quotes or different sections of the text. So if I'm going through and answering all these questions, I can get to my short answer questions as well. So if I say MLK uses metaphors and allusions, he does so when blah, 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 blah. So let's say I explain my answer, provide some good supporting evidence, move on to the next question. MLK accomplishes a lot, and that's my only answer. Not as well thought out as the last question, but I'll show you how you can provide feedback and grade this in a second. And even though I thought that I finished all my questions, CommonLit doesn't let me forget that I did skip over a question. So this grayed out question here is the one that I have left to answer. So I'm gonna go back, answer this question. I can check over all my answers again, and then submit when I'm all done. I get a little reminder here to go back and check over just one more time, but I'll go ahead and submit. So now on the student account, I can see all the assignments I have left to do, in addition to the ones that are currently being graded, and my completed assignments. So I can view the scores for my completed assignments. So I see the text on the left-hand side, and then I see my response, the score I got, and a teacher feedback or comment if it's a short answer question. I can see the correct answer and my answer for multiple choice questions. And then at the very end, I can see my overall score. If I want to see my overall performance, I can go to my performance page and see my individual student data for my overall performance. So this could be across all classes, or I can zoom into a particular class. I can see my short answer responses as well as some teacher feedback here. And I can see how I'm doing according to standard. So that might be more information that you're interested in. So I'm going to switch over to the teacher account where you can see very similar data to this and more for all of your students. So I'm going to go back to my teacher account, and I'll show you how to grade this lesson and then see all that data that we want to look at for our students. So same thing with a student account. I'm going to go ahead and refresh this so that I can see a notification that lets me know that I have something to do. So I have something to grade, and I can see on my in progress assignments that I have an assignment here to look at and grade. I also have annotations that I can view. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the grading page for this assignment. It'll drag me down directly to what I need to work on, but I just want to scroll up and show you what we have here. So this is the grading page. I have the text on the left-hand side. I have all of my multiple choice questions, which were graded for me automatically, which is really awesome. It saves me time. But if you want to check on these, you can see the question, the right answer, and then you can also see a percentage breakdown of how your students responded. So right now I just have Sean's submission, but when more students respond, you can see this pie chart breakdown. And then you also see the 2 short answer questions you have to grade. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the first one. You can see the question. You can see an exemplary response here that our curriculum team has provided for you. And then we also have a how-to video that explains how you can grade short answer responses if this is your first time. Maybe you need a little extra guidance. So if you click on this, we have these buttons throughout our site for different features, and this is just a 2 to 3 minute video that explains how to best use that feature of the site, whatever it's next to. So the red play button was next to short answer responses, and we show you a video of effective grading with CommonLit. We also have a rubric you can download to guide your grading. But if I want to scroll down here, I can see student submissions. Usually, if the student has submitted their response, they'll all show up here. You can hide names if you want to remove any potential bias when you're grading. And then when you go through to grade, it's kind of like grading a stack of papers. So you can click on each response and you grade on a scale of 0 to 4, and then you provide optional feedback. During distance learning, it's a great time to take advantage of any opportunity to provide feedback because you don't see your students as much. You probably aren't talking to them as frequently, and we really want to make sure that they're still learning what they need to learn and set them up for success, really, by providing them as much feedback as we can. So definitely recommend, even though it's optional, definitely recommend taking advantage of this. Even if a student gets the answer right, it's great to still make that connection to them. So I see that Sean, maybe he does go on to explain in a longer, more fleshed out answer, and he provides a lot of evidence. I can say, great job, Sean. You really provided a lot of evidence and explanation here. So you can say whatever you'd like in this response, but even if a student does well and you give them a score of 4, for example, it's still a good idea to make that connection to them during distance learning. Now let's say I'm working on question 8 now, and I see my exemplary response. I see Sean's response, and it looks a little meek. It looks a little thin. It doesn't seem like he provided a lot of evidence or tried that hard, to be honest, if this is all that he has provided. So maybe I can say that he got a 1 on this because there is something, but it's not exactly his strongest response. I can say, Sean, please be sure to provide more evidence, and you can even directly quote and pull from the text, whatever you would like to say. You can also come up here and copy and paste an example. So if I want to copy and paste this part right here, or maybe this entire section, I can go through and say an example of how you should be doing this would be to say something like, and then you can paste in from the exemplary response so that you can really show your student what they should be trying to mimic in their short answer responses. So really you can use this however you would like. If you just want to refer to it, if you want to copy and paste from it, it's there for you to use while you're grading. Then you grade on a 0 to 4 scale, finish your feedback for your student, and once you hit save and next, I'm actually done grading for the moment. I don't have any other student submissions to work on. So I actually want to take a look at my student annotations for this lesson now. You can come over to this left side panel and click on student annotations, and that will show you those annotations I just made during this webinar. So I can see Sean's 2 notes here, and I can see his highlight. So maybe if I want to provide feedback on this annotation, I can click on his note and I can start typing and say, why is that interesting? Sean, please explain, so that he knows that this is something that he should really dive into next time and provide more explanation on. So again, when you release scores, your students will be able to see not only your feedback on their short answer responses, but also feedback on their annotations. So definitely take a look at the student annotations for your lessons. So now I want to take a look at an assignment report that is going to provide you more data on how students were doing on a particular assignment. So I'm going to go to one that has already been completed by several students, and this is all demo data, so don't worry about this being student data. These are all, if you haven't noticed, Boy Meets World class names. So I'm going to go to this assignment report for the Raven for this class, and you can see a lot more data here for this particular assignment. I can see a snapshot of data at the top here, so I can see class average, a breakdown of scores, how students are doing according to question type. I can also see how students are performing on those guiding questions. So again, not graded, but you do get the data of how many attempts it took a student to get each question correct, and it's color coded. So even at a first glance, I can see students really struggled with this first question. If you want to see a question, you can hover over each question here. You can see what the correct answer was, and maybe this is something you can revisit with your students, this question and this section of the text. Maybe it's something you could bring up on a video call, for instance, after the lesson. Now you can see the assessment results. So I can see the graded portion of this assignment. And again, it's color coded, and I can hover over each question here to see the question, the correct answer, the standard that was aligned to, and then I can see the short answers for each student as well. If I think that a student really could have done better on this assignment and I want to give them another chance, so maybe Corey could have done a little bit better, I can come over and unsubmit so that he can revise his previous responses and improve his grade. And always look out for this download ability, this functionality. So if you have an external gradebook, you can download data and upload it to your external gradebook. You can also print reports very frequently. So if I come here to the student performance tab, I can see student performance across all of my classes, as well as within a class and at the individual level. And you can print a lot of these reports for your own purposes. So I can see averages across my classes for different types of texts, across assignments for all of my classes. I can see how they're doing according to standard, and averages over time and on different types of texts. And then if I want to zoom in, I can click on one class, and it shows me similar information, but just at the class level. I can see how each student is doing on their assignments for this class. And again, similar information down here with how they're doing according to standard. And I can zoom in even further at the individual level, which is going to look familiar because this is what students could see on their own account. They can see how they are doing them personally. So you can see every individual student's performance report page. So I can scroll down and see their responses and your feedback all on the same page, and you can see how they're doing according to each standard. So if I want to see how he's doing on vocab, it shows me his average and the different assignments that had these standard questions. And again, you can download this. So maybe if you want to download and share with a parent, maybe to get them more involved, to let them know how their kid is doing in your class, you can definitely do that as well. All right, so I know that we're a couple minutes past the hour now. I went over a lot of information. I'm going to pause briefly to see if there's anything my colleagues want to address. If you have any last minute thoughts, be sure to type them out in the next minute now, and we'll be hopping off shortly. But if you do have questions now or later on, you can also always email help@commonlit.org. I'm putting that in the chat again. help@commonlit.org if you have any technical questions whatsoever. So I'm going to pause to see if we have any questions. Bryn, Anjali, Amanda, you guys have anything that you want to talk about before I show the rest of our resources?
I think we're okay right now. We're just working really hard to answer all of your questions. Just one more time, if you're putting them in the chat, there's a chance that we'll miss them. So please use the Q&A feature at the bottom and stick around if you've sent in a question. We'll make sure to answer before we hop off.
Awesome, thank you, Amanda. Yes, please send your questions to Q&A. And if it's something that might require a more in-depth response, we are hopping off in just a minute or so. So feel free to send that to help@commonlit.org. Now, before I put a slide up to show you all of the email addresses that you can use in addition to help@commonlit.org, I just want to point out for a few other things that you can actually use to help you use CommonLit if you're unfamiliar with it. You can come down to the bottom of the screen anytime that you are on CommonLit, and you can access our blog. So if I click this blog button, it'll take me in a new tab to the CommonLit blog, which has a lot of great articles. And right now we have a ton of articles on how you can use CommonLit during your virtual instruction. So if you want to take a look at all the features and how we suggest you use them for remote learning, definitely check out our blog. We tell you how you can even make a CommonLit lesson a video lesson. We tell you about the different texts that we've highlighted on our featured content tab and how you can use those lessons in remote assignments. And then if you scroll down, you can see a few of our older blog posts that are more generally about CommonLit and different tools you can use. We also have tabs for schools and districts. So if you're a school or district admin, this might be interesting for you to look at, see all of our different resources for schools and districts. If you're a parent, you can check out this tab and I'll tell you a little bit more about CommonLit. And we have an Espanol page if you're using CommonLit Espanol, or if you have, if you're using CommonLit for your English language learners. So definitely check out our blog. Lots and lots of really awesome blog posts on that page. We also have the support articles, so you can access it by clicking on this help button here. It'll bring up the ability to search our support articles, or you can always come down to FAQ and it'll take you to our page that has all of the articles. So if you have a question about co-teacher and how you can add a co-teacher to your class, we have several really awesome support articles about co-teachers and different functionalities related to that. So definitely take a look. If you have any question whatsoever, there's a very good chance that we have an answer for you on our FAQ page. And last but not least, we do have our YouTube page that has a lot of great how-to videos, recordings for webinars, recordings for like pre-reading videos that you can share with your students before they begin a lesson, and so on. So definitely check us out on YouTube. We also have a Facebook and Twitter. We have a handle that's @CommonLit that you can use if you want to tag us. And we also are looking for user testers. So our product team likes to work with teachers anytime that we're designing new features on our site. We really like to keep teachers in mind whenever we are creating new things, because you're the reason why we have our product, and most of our staff is actually former teachers, so we know how important it is to check in with those who we are serving. So if you are interested in hopping on a call with us to be a user tester, then I'm going to put a link for the sign up page in the chat. So I just sent it in our chat, and you can help us test the usability of new features we are designing. All right, so with that, I'm going to switch back to that slide that I was showing you before that has all the helpful email addresses on it. So if you want to check that out and email us, we have help@commonlit.org for any technical issues. We also have a help address for those who are Spanish speakers and users of the site. And if you are a school or district admin, please reach out to partnerships@commonlit.org to reach our partnerships team and learn more about our different solutions for schools and districts. And if you have questions just generally about this webinar, if you don't receive the follow-up email, which will have the recording for this webinar, or if you're looking for a certificate of attendance, reach out to info@commonlit.org. That's info@commonlit.org. And lastly, again, please feel free to tag us on Twitter or Facebook. Our handle is @CommonLit. We love to not only learn about how different teachers are using our program, especially during this time, but we want to start a conversation among our users so that there's a community of CommonLit users and everyone is sharing the resource and also learning about how you can use this resource in any circumstance. So we know that people can get creative, especially during times like these, and we want to learn as much from you as possible and be able to share with others how you are using CommonLit. So feel free to tag us and feel free to reach out to us at any point in time if you have any questions whatsoever. And with that, I know my support team is answering just a couple more questions. So if you have already submitted your question, feel free to stick around. We'll leave this up for just another minute. But I just want to say my last words here. Thank you so much for attending. We really appreciate you taking the time to learn more about CommonLit. And thank you so much for everything that you're doing. We know that it's a really stressful time. We know that this is a really weird time that no one has ever had to go through before. And teachers seem to be at the forefront of everything and trying to figure out how to adjust and how to help students as much as they possibly can. So we know that you are doing really important work and we want to try to help you as much as possible. I want to reiterate again, everything that you saw here today is free. There's no catch, there's no gimmick, nothing. We've always been free and always will be, and it's not just a temporary thing. So if you start using us now during the time of COVID-19, we're going to be free for years to come. So please ask questions, learn more about our program. We're more than happy to tell you so that you can use this for your students for as long as you like. And please stay healthy, stay positive, lean on us. We want to be a resource that you can use, and we want to be a helpful hand. So We created CommonLit with you in mind, and we want to continue to keep you in mind through tough times, through good times, whatever it need be. Thank you again. Thank you for everything you're doing, and thanks for attending our webinar.